Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm a social studies educator, historian, and host of this, the Everything is a Primary Source podcast. I'm also an avid collector of popular culture artifacts. I love what I find at thrift store outlets, garage sale leftovers, and what I spot just making my way around the built world. I enjoy sorting through boxes of free books and magazines, not to mention online collections like Internet Archive, and of course the Library of Congress. But you don't need to spend your time digging through bins or following online rabbit holes to get a look into the past. The movies and TV we watch, the books we read, and the games we play are all documents of the past. So is fashion, food, music, toys, even the roads we travel on and the places we live and work in. Everything is a primary source. This podcast is the result of exhibiting these kinds of artifacts in public, getting passersby to select an item they connect with, and then chatting with me to see what it says about the time, place, and people who made it. The conversation you are about to hear, therefore, is your history, my history, our history, through popular culture. To have Paul with me and at the Ephemera Fair in Old Greenwich, Connecticut. And did you have to come far for this?
Only from Stamford, Connecticut.
Okay, so next town over.
Next town over.
That's not bad at all. And have you been to the Ephemera Fair before?
Decades ago.
Okay, so what brings you to this kind of convention? I think it takes a certain kind of person to be interested in ephemera.
Believe it or not, my father found some old canceled checks from the 1870s, some old land deeds, looking to sell them. It's part of his old collection. Don't know what to do with them. They're just taking up space on a shelf.
And so if there's anybody that's going to know what to make of them or what to do with them...
And I was told they were so common, they're not worth anything, really.
Okay, well that's...
But they're curiosities. They're beautiful.
And they have historical value, because that's what I'm here for, too.
They have vignettes from the Portland, Maine area.
Okay, that's not far from where I came from, so...
Everything from beehives that was valuable for the sweetener, old steamships, Indians, old insignia of Maine itself.
Wow.
So they're just there.
Yeah, it's all you need sometimes is like little pieces of ephemera. And
Sure, I'll let you take a look.
Oh, we got it right here. Awesome.
Got it right here.
I was going to say, maybe... Obviously, this doesn't work on audio so well, but...
I know. But you can describe them.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. It's funny, like, documents back then all look like they are money of some kind. You know what I mean? It's like the illustrations that we're familiar with on our dollar bills.
The handwriting was precise. The ink, it was precise. You can read them today as though they were written a week ago.
And it's so official, yet, I don't know, I love the combination of printed but then also handwritten.
Yes.
Right, which is, it's such a 19th century thing. And all the imagery of Columbia is a figure that you don't see very often anymore.
Interesting.
You know, that the Lady Liberty's friend, you know, or sister kind of thing is, you know, like Columbia Pictures kind of. Yeah, and you're right. It does have a lot of very specifically Maine. So you are of the kind of visitor here that has things that you're actually connected to.
Yes.
To bring along.
My father went gaga over these. We even have an old deed to an old horse.
The further east you go, and I know that there's people from California that are here, there's people from Washington State that are here, but I feel like here in the East, we kind of have a monopoly on junk stores and antique stores and barn sales and just... we have so many documents just kind of like...
I have found as you travel to the Midwest, what's old was 1920s,
right.
Something made of plastic. That's old.
Right. Yeah,
they don't have this stuff.
I used to work at a living history museum in New Hampshire, And some of the houses date to 1695, around there. And we had some visitors come, I think, from Florida, which is also East Coast, but it has a different iteration of when, Anglo and when the United States took it and started developing it and stuff. And they're like, where's the old stuff? And we're like, well, what do you mean by old? And they're like, like 1900. I'm like, that's not old. Like, that's kind of new, in our terms. Like, that's on the newer side of things.
When I was a young boy in Florida in the 1970s, we saw road networks, and it was a swamp. I mean, don't go off the road. There's alligators. there's armadillos. Today, it's huge developments, condos, multi-story apartment buildings. It's all new within the last 30 years.
And because of when all that stuff was built in the last 30 years, it all looks the same. I've gotten lost in Central Florida before because I'm like, so which development is it that I have to turn into? Lily Pad Lane or Frog Pond? It's like everything is... You just interchange the names and they all look exactly the same. And
This is an interesting thing happening in Boston today. The old buildings are being torn down, replaced by 15-story, 18-story buildings. But the question there is, well, they'll all look from this era. Yeah. They'll all look alike. They'll all have this ultra postmodernistic look to them. It's going to change the face of Boston.
It already has. I mean, you look at the Boston skyline, or even the Manhattan skyline for that matter. I mean, downtown Brooklyn has huge skyscrapers now. That was never really attached to Brooklyn as a skyscraper.
The old Hell's Kitchen, which was little tenements from immigrants from Ireland, from all over the world. You can walk down the street and smell all kinds of different food being cooked. It's all now condo units that look the same.
Yeah.
And where's the Hell's Kitchen? It's a fancy upscale neighborhood now.
Gentrification has its positives,
Of course.
It does. It usually involves safety, and you usually have
revenue for the city.
Revenue, high scale, upper class type stuff. Culture is good, but the character tends to be gone. It doesn't hang around very much. From my table of stuff, and I remember vividly finding this. I almost didn't buy this. I go up in Maine to Goodwill by the Pound in Gorham as a ritual. It's at least like once a month, sometimes twice a month we head up there. This diver's log, and it was made. I was just putting down Washington State as being too new, but it was made in Tacoma, Washington, but it was clearly filled out by somebody from Maine because it has a 207 area code and they're from Bangor, so maybe this is Stephen King's neighbor that filled out this diving log, and you chose it because you yourself are into diving.
I learned to dive in the early 1990s in Worcester, Massachusetts.
That's an interesting place to learn to dive. Where in Worcester would you have that ability to go?
We drove out to Gloucester.
Oh, okay. So I was like, is there a pond or something?
There are lakes in the area. There are swimming pools in the area. So you learn there, and then you go out in the sea.
So this person went to such places as Grand Turk in Barbados, Radar Reef. And so I'll put a picture of it for the podcast purposes, but it's a pretty, like any other log, right? It has a template. So each page or series of pages, you put in the information, and here they went to Grand Turk McDonald's Arch, which I wonder if they had burgers there.
Phenomenal scuba.
Looks like they spent a lot of time in Grand Turk. Rhone. I mean, similar to the documents that you brought, it has both printed material and handwritten. So there's probably lots of these divers logs out there after the Northwest Underwater Services made this, but this is specific to this man named Donald meager. Now, as a diver, what is the purpose of this log?
So as you progress in the sport of diving, you want to get more certifications. You want to do better dives, deeper dives. There's cave exploring, which is very hazardous. There's wreck exploring, which is less hazardous unless you penetrate the wreck. So you want to show that you've had experience. And then this man is also documenting his dive. It's a little memory here. So he's recalling where he dove, the depth that he dove, how long it was, what he saw that was interesting to him. And so it's like a little memory here. So you can sit there on a cold, wet afternoon and kind of relive the dive.
I guess, yeah. I mean, would he share this with somebody or just have it for his own?
Diving instructors, and if he wants to go and get a better certification to do more experienced, more advanced dives, you need to show that you've been to places, you had some experience diving.
So I didn't take a close enough look, I guess, but I wonder if there's this place. I don't know if you'd have to take it to a notarizer,
yes,
but
a dive master will have a stamp.
Yeah.
And yes, he'll stamp so you use an outside certification so that you realize that you can't just make this stuff up on your own.
I was going to say, it doesn't appear that this person did it for that reason because I don't see any stamps.
Neither do I.
And
it looks like a memory.
The illustration at the front of it is kind of silly, cartoony, so you could probably buy this at a shop, right? And it's just for your own purposes.
For your own purposes.
But something that if you were to submit it for certification so you could take other people with you or
learn other skills in diving, much more than just going down 50 feet and looking around.
Right. So, my whole big thing is history through popular culture. I imagine that at some point, as popular as, because this takes some skill. It's not something you just do. This would be in a dive shop, but dive shops would really only be patronized by people that know what they're doing. You don't just I'll go diving today. So that kind of thing.
One more thing to add. So this is disappearing like everything else now. Online, you have a digital device. You would record pictures, images, your voice on a digital device. And so by the late 90s, early 2000s, these dive logs began to disappear, replaced in favor of something electronic that you keep in your pocket like your cell phone, and that's your new dive log.
Which is, I don't know. So I'm surprised this paper is as in good shape as it is. Like the outer part is clearly meant to be in a water area, some damp at least. Obviously you wouldn't take it down with you. But I'm surprised that the paper, maybe there was some other kind of plastic covering that no longer is here with it. But the paper shows no signs of water damage. But I would imagine that having your phone or another electronic device involved would be asking for too much problems to take it with you.
There are dive computers that are submersible, so you take the dive computer with you. It will itself log your dive, how deep you go, how long you go, what the oxygen consumption is. Basic stuff like that, and that's your record of where you've been, what you've done. The old paper and pencil and pen methodology is disappearing, like everything else.
What got you into diving?
I was on the swim team at Clark University, so they had offering for scuba diving.
Yeah, the next step, right? It's okay, I'm swimming, I might as well take it to the next level. Did you see it as something that, because sometimes people get into things like that because of pop culture, mass media stuff, like they see it in a movie or they watch it on TV. Sure. Was there anything like that you when you said, hey, why not?
Wow.
Did you have something on your mind?
That's an interesting question. It goes back to when I watched a movie in the 1970s called The Deep. That was about scuba diving.
Okay.
They discover a wreck. They discover 2 wrecks. One has ancient Spanish galleon doubloons, and one has World War II amphora of morphine. And so that's becomes a big issue.
Yeah.
Because morphine can be transformed into other drugs, heroin and so forth. So there's drug dealers who want the material. They want the old doubloons, the old Spanish treasure.
The history, historic value,
and the gold and the jewels and all that they find.
And then it becomes a competition between them, and you can only imagine with underwater stuff how many dangerous things they can do at each other to sabotage and whatnot.
And that happens. That's shown in the movie too.
So that is like, I want to do that. I want to fight people underwater. And
I want to see interesting things, interesting wrecks underwater.
Did you? I mean, have you seen some pretty cool stuff?
Off the coast of Revere, Massachusetts, a barge carrying Revere-ware metal material crashed on the rocks in a storm. That material is still down there. And so you might be able to find something with a nice Revere-ware mark on it.
We're talking silverware, right?
Right.
So like Little Mermaid, she can,
and pewter.
That's where she got her fork.
And metal, yes. Metal.
Dingle hopper, or whatever she calls it.
Silver would be something special.
That is
scuba divers diving off the Thimble Islands in Connecticut found what they thought was a cannonball. Was encrusted and so forth, and it was sent away. Bad news, the news comes back, not a cannonball at all. Better thing, it's a bowling ball, 7 pins that the Dutch played.
What?
Yes.
Like Rip Van Winkle?
Yes. From the time of Captain Kidd. Because it was found in a cove where Captain Kidd would keep his little pirate ship with the sails down. It looked like trees. So we speculate, sailors, pirates were joking around all day long, playing 7-pin, 10-pin, and either Kidd himself or the quartermaster grabbed a hold of it and threw it in the water and said, "Get back to work." but this diver found the oldest recorded bowling ball in the Americas, in the colonies from that period. It's now in the Bowling Ball Hall of Fame.
I want to go there now and see that. Isn't that remarkable? Because I imagine as a scuba diver, you kind of are on the same, not the same level at all because you're underwater, but the same kind of idea as somebody with a metal detector.
Right.
It's archaeology, it's popular archaeology. You usually think of archaeology as something you would need to have some kind of significant training with and get the right to carve a giant hole in somebody's property. Whereas, are there rights involved with scuba diving as well, or do you have to get permission to go certain places?
Depends what you find. If it's Civil War, the U.S. government, doesn't want you to touch it at all. They want it marked off and so forth. If you find something just stuck in the sand, okay, that can be yours. But if it's attached to something bigger, you've got to report that. That becomes a whole big issue. If it's Spanish gold on a beach, you can actually take that, but it needs to be reported.
It's kind of crazy how, because when I got a metal detector a couple years ago, and I was inspired by, there's a great British TV series called The Detectorists. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's a comedy drama, and it's about these 2 detectorists, right, that go around the countryside in England, and they never find anything. Like, it's them just enjoying the hobby of, but they do it because on the outside opportunity, they might find their gold, right? They might find something of value.
Or something more interesting. The Romans were in England. When the Roman Empire left England, they literally wrote to say, what we've built is now yours. We're all leaving because our empire is in collapse. Do with it as you will, and we might be back. what happened to the old Roman coins is that they were buried. Old Roman artifacts were buried. So people are finding old Roman coins. They're finding artwork and treasures from the pre-Roman era, metal detecting on farms, next to fence posts.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You should, if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's a great show.
Sure.
And they talk a lot about that, and because they're like the two smartest guys in their town, but nobody cares about it because they're just always out there with they're so involved in their hobby. But I feel like it's people who are willing to go to the bottom of the ocean, go scour through fields and bramble and stuff, and those of us who are willing to go through all of the refuse at Goodwill by the pound, who are preserving history, right? And I think it's only appropriate that I found this in my own archaeological dig. So here's this guy doing underwater archaeology or adventuring, and I find his diver's log at Goodwill by the pound.
It's truly catcher's catch, Ken. Some people in Europe, but also in England, will take an old survey map of old roads, and where there's an intersection, there was usually stalls, someone selling things, and things fall off of tables and so forth. So you might find some old coins precisely there if they're going for that.
So, and it's like being able to envision yourself.
Sure.
And by touching, if you are lucky enough to find something like that, whether it be a bowling ball or, well, I guess the silverware never got used, but it was going to be used. But knowing that somebody touched that,
yes,
and it could be as much as 1,000 years ago, it's a wild thought, and I think that's what drives a lot of us to at least be interested in this world, if not an active participant.
People in America go after old survey maps showing where the outhouses were, because folks would toss things into an old outhouse. So people that do bottle collecting will find either bottle fragments or they're going for the intact bottles.
Yeah.
From early 1800s, 1700s.
I mean, all pretty much up until the 1960s, there when you didn't really have, in some rural areas, regular trash pickup or anything. I know where I live, we have a pretty sizable bottle dump behind our house.
Wow.
Because and we have there's a brook that goes through our property, and then part of it was widened by man. Somebody made it like a larger pond to irrigate the field. And we can only assume, because we found more than a few bottles and other things, that was also their trash heap. That they just, because they didn't have a way to bring it, and they didn't have enough trash to warrant, they would have these things. Just
one bottle at a time.
Yeah,
sure.
They didn't mind, maybe a sinkhole or something, just cover it up. It really puts things in perspective as far as what we use and how much we use things and how much waste we create by comparison, that necessitates things like landfills or recycling centers and all that.
Well, that gets us into even prohibition. There were folks that went up to the Thousand Islands. That's a waterway between the U.S. and Canada. You can drink in Canada, you couldn't drink in the U.S. They would have barges, they would have parties on boats and so forth. And so if the liquor police were coming after you, you dumped all the stuff overboard, and that's where scuba divers go and look for old plates, old bowls. There were old bootleggers that they weren't legging boots that had old bottles and old rum cases just tossed into the water. So.
You can also rely on pre-environmentalism being a component of it too, because you think about really before the 60s and the 70s, when environmentalism was becoming more popularized,
people would throw trash out the window.
Like they wouldn't even think twice about it. I mean, I know they still do that. I see it all the time on the road, but it was perfectly acceptable.
Yes, it was.
In like a park type setting, just to chuck into the woods. And so if you're after, mid-century trash, bottles and cans and stuff like that, why not? Well, I thank you for taking the time. I love these impromptu conversations. I grabbed this dive log. I wasn't even going to bring it, but I'm like, you know what? I'll bring it. And I'm glad I did because it created a great conversation. Thanks again, Paul.
Thank you.
Popular culture, by definition, connects and unites us, and proves that people of different backgrounds, in fact, have a lot in common with one another. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, at least in part, for that reason. If it connects with you and you'd like to add to it, or any of the podcast episodes, just visit everything-history.com and search for the Everything is a Primary Source project, which can be found in the classroom section of the website. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Be sure to rate and share this podcast wherever you are listening to it now, and follow Everything as a Primary Source on social media, including YouTube and especially Instagram. Thank you for listening to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source.